Welcome back, everyone. As usual, we are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about a movie very near and dear to both our hearts. We're going to talk about the 1983 movie Valley Girl. Believe it or not, this movie was made for like $1 million. Just
Really?
kind of incredible. Yeah, it was shot in about I think 20, 21 days. So it's pretty crazy. I actually was fortunate enough to attend the 40th anniversary screening yesterday at the, oh God, I think it's called the TLC Chinese Theater now. Used to be known as Grauman's. And they showed the movie, and afterwards they did a cast and crew screening discussing the movie. And it was really cool. They actually had practically everybody in the cast there that wasn't named Nicolas Cage. They had like 19 people there.
That's so awesome. And I saw some pictures of it on Facebook. It looked like it was just amazing.
It was a lot of fun. They had a couple members of the Plimsolls were there. Josie Cotton was there. Lee Purcell, who played the stepmom, was in there. You name Deborah Foreman, the director Martha Coolidge. Oh, geez, it was crazy. Colleen Camp, who played one of Julie's parents in the movie. It just was a huge collection of the talent from that movie, and it was really cool to get to hear them all talk. I mean, and they had some people in there that were barely in the movie, right? They had the you remember the scene, well, we'll talk about later, but in the prom scene, the teacher that was talking and introducing the king and queen of the prom,
Uh-huh.
she was there. So it was she didn't even have a name in the movie. So it was really, really cool. I knew I was going to see it. It would inspire me to do this. And I figured this is a perfect time. Let's do it. Do you remember when you first saw this movie? Because I didn't see it in theaters.
I didn't see it in the theaters either. I don't remember specifically when I saw it. I do own it. It's not in cellophane. It's gotten quite a bit of play. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I was like frantically looking this morning at scenes and trying to reacclimate myself with the movie. Just a gemstone, man. It's just a total slice of 80s. It's up there with Fast Times as far as sort of a time capsule. Great, great movie.
Yeah, I mean, to think about, how quickly they did it, how cheap they did it, the amazing cast. I didn't see it originally in the theaters because I thought it looked really stupid, right? Obviously, it was a kind of a rip-off, at least the idea was a rip-off of the Frank Zappa song Valley Girl, which interestingly enough, not only did they not use in the movie, but Frank Zappa actually sued them and lost in an effort to get it money back because he wanted nothing to do with this movie. Um, but it looked really dumb to me, and I remember back then we had HBO, and HBO at that time had one channel. You had one HBO channel, and anytime that a new movie came on, they'd play it like 80 million times during that month on HBO. So I couldn't avoid seeing Valley Girl. And finally I was like, all right, let me just watch this thing. And I'm like kind of not into it at the beginning, and then it hooked me. All the Valley Girl speak, you're kind of watching it going, I don't know. And then it hooked me, and what a great movie. I remember watching it a lot. I think I was in either middle school or, maybe a freshman in high school. But yeah, it hooked me big time, and it's still one of my favorite movies. And I was watching it last night, and it's like, God, this thing still holds up really, really well.
Definitely. And it's got one of the probably best, if not the best movie soundtrack from the 80s. Just who's who. I mean, the men at work around there, as you mentioned, Plim Souls and just tons and tons of even I think Pat Travers had a tune in there. So great,
Pat
great
Travers
stuff,
had
man.
"I La 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 Love You." It was a very unusual song for Pat Travers, and they actually had one of the guys there that was did the movie soundtrack or engineering or something. I kind of wanted to ask him. They did do, they asked if any audience members had a question. I wanted to talk to him afterwards and just say, hey, how did the hell did Pat Travers end up on it? Even though I love the song, I just thought that was just such a weird inclusion. But yeah. And then, of course, I Melt With You by Modern English.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
the Cameron Dye, who plays Fred in the movie, said that he was a huge Plimsouls fan. I think a lot of them were. And he said, in his opinion, "A Million Miles Away" is the best song of the '80s.
It's a good tune. I wouldn't say that it's the best song of the 80s, but it is a very good tune.
So, what is that your favorite song from the soundtrack? And also, you got to
Uh,
mention Josie Cotton too, because I think Josie Cotton's, he could be the one. It's a fantastic song as well on that.
yeah, I think that A Million Miles Away is probably the best song. And I was watching that scene where they were playing it, where Randy takes Julie to that club and they were watching, the band. And it's such a cool scene, It's they're talking and stuff. And uh, let me see, I actually documented some of this here. Anyway, they were talking, and she says something to the effect of like, "Oh, gee, it's like we're linked or something," and then fade in the song, A Million Miles Away, and they start to kiss. It still gives me goosebumps, man. It's just such a great scene.
You're such a romantic.
I am.
I agree. It's one of the better scenes in there, and one of the better songs. I think I still go with "I Melt With You." I just love that song, and I think Valley Girl. I think of "I Melt With You." It'd be probably because they also used it twice, right? They used it in the montage, and then they use it at the end of the movie. So that holds a special place in my heart for sure. Um, yeah, the I guess there's actually a documentary. They actually showed a preview of it before the movie that based upon the singer for the Plimsouls, Peter Case, and it looks really interesting because I guess he left the Plimsouls or disbanded the Plimsouls, whatever you prefer to call it, to be a solo act, and everyone thought he was going to be this huge next icon as a solo artist, and it just never happened. I think it was Rolling Stone that named one of his albums the best album of whatever particular year. But yeah, for whatever reason, it never really came to fruition. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. Yeah,
I
I
do want to see that.
never heard of the guy outside of, the band.
I think that's the whole purpose of the. I think that's the whole purpose of this documentary. So. One of the things I wanted to talk about in terms of this movie is, we already mentioned the great casting, and we didn't mention one of the actors who obviously is the main character in this movie. We're talking about Nicolas Cage. And it was very interesting because the director, Martha Coolidge, was there last night. And one of the people that was actually being considered for the role was Judd Nelson.
Huh.
Yeah.
He probably could have pulled it off. I mean, I can't totally picture it, but somewhat.
Yeah, I don't know if that was early on. She didn't really clarify it, and I wish she had. She said he was unavailable, so I don't know if he had been available, if he would have actually been the person to do this movie. But what she said, which was really interesting, is that they kept bringing in these really attractive male actors, and she goes, I don't want these cookie cutter good looking guys. And she walks over to the file that was the reject pile that had the 8x10s that the casting had went ahead and rejected for whatever reason. She says, I want people that are interesting, and don't look like these cookie cutter good looking, but people that are interesting. And she grabs the first picture off at the top of the reject pile and holds it up. So I want somebody like him. It was Nicolas Cage.
Wow. So you just got lucky.
She said he was like one of the last ones to interview, and he at the time I think he was doing Rumblefish, had a small part in that. Said I think Deborah Foreman said he was 19 at the time
Wow.
when he filmed this, and so they had him do a screen test with Deborah Foreman, and I think that kind of went ahead and made it the slam dunk, and hence Nicolas Cage was cast.
Super cool, man. Yeah, he did an excellent job in that. I mean, all the actors really did. And some of the research I was doing this morning, let's see, uh, Michael Brown, who played Tommy, and I didn't realize this. As you know, I'm a big fan of Breaking Bad. He plays this villain named Jack Walker in Breaking Bad, and he does such a great job in that movie, or I'm sorry, in that series. Highly recommend that you watch it. I know that's not 80s, but you got to watch it. But it was a trip because I always thought, this guy is such a great actor, is playing this like so well, and I had no idea that it was the same guy from Valley Girl.
And which character was he?
He plays this guy named Jack Walker. He plays in
No,
like a
no, in
couple of
Valley
seasons.
Girl.
Oh, and he was Tommy. He's the
Oh,
boyfriend,
Tommy. Okay, Michael Bowen, right?
Michael Bowen.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Is that what I
Um,
said?
I thought you said Brown. I don't know why. Maybe I just misheard you.
Maybe I misread.
I'm old too, so that's okay. No, and when you think about it, I really thought Deborah Foreman would have been a huge star. Her and Michelle Myrink, I hope I'm not mispronouncing that, went on to star together in another great 80s movie, Real Genius. And I remember she did that god awful movie with Sam Jones, which apparently she loves. I think it was awful, but My Chauffeur. I remember seeing that as well because she was in it. But
Right.
there. And one of the other things that I thought was kind of interesting is, it seemed like all their relationships for a movie that shot for like 20 days, that they're still very intertwined, and there's a lot of friendships that still exist to this day. You can tell that there was a lot of love between the cast members and the crew. And they were saying like after the movie was filmed that E.G. Daly and Deborah Foreman were actually roommates for a while.
Wow.
Yeah. So E.G. Daly, by the way, she looked amazing. I don't know what
Yeah.
she was doing. And Lee Purcell, who plays a stepmom, I also want to know her secrets because holy cow, she looked really good too. Um, let's talk about that scene. Kind of a homage, right? The stepmom to the trying to get the daughter's boyfriend or at the time friend. Um, because if you remember, she's like, "Can I give you a tip?" And she says plastics, which is a reference to The Graduate. The whole Mrs. Robinson thing.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't get that.
you didn't get that, yeah?
I did not get that.
I ain't either. It's called research, but um, so I think as most males watching it, especially of that age when we originally saw this, that was the fantasy, the super hot mom. Do you agree or
I don't remember a lot about that. I remember a little bit. Who was she actually suggesting it to? Was that Tommy or was that Randy?
no? She was trying to seduce the kid that her daughter was
Oh,
interested in,
I
and he
remember
was
now.
actually came to the party and was a delivery boy.
Gotcha. Yeah, I never really had that sort of fantasy when I was that age. I mean, I always thought that that would be super awkward if that actually were to really happen.
Really? I
Yeah,
did, but I just never saw any. I never had the hot older lady anywhere in my life for that to happen. So I do remember in Hawaii, though, there were a couple, there was an older woman that asked me if I would go out with her. I was like a sophomore in high school, and she asked if I would go out with her in Hawaii. And I was on the trip with my grandmother and my aunt, and my grandma and my aunt shut that shit down quick. So yeah, that was the closest I ever came. But Lee Purcell in that role was super sexy. I still, and that guy that was, I forgot the character's name. I think maybe it was Skip. I think his name was Skip in the movie, and he was there last night too. So, like I said, they had everybody there. It was very cool. One of the things I always thought was really weird about this movie, as you can see from my shirt, Deborah Foreman was not on the poster. And that's something that's always bugged me. If you watch the movie again, you'll see that this girl was actually Samantha, who was an ex-girlfriend of Randy's, who he hooks up with in the bathroom at the club when Julie breaks his heart. And I just always this poster always drives me nuts. Probably why I never bought it. Because as much as I love the movie, the fact that she's not on there has always been bothersome to me.
Yeah, yeah, it is a pebble in one's shoe. I never understood why it was, and apparently she was being considered for the lead role and didn't get it, if I remember correctly.
I think so, but I think the other thing was they wanted to do the photo shoot for the poster. And I think Deborah Foreman, I don't know if it was her or her representatives, wanted her to get paid to do the photo shoot for the movie.
Mm,
And for whatever reason, they declined to do that. It was a very low budget movie. Nobody knew what this movie was going to be, and they declined, so they shot it without her. Which I remember reading something. I think it was that they tried really hard to talk her into it, and she either her or representatives just drew a line in the sand, thinking, "Well, how are you going to do the poster without the female lead?" And well, they did it. So kind of sad.
it is because again, it turned out to be such an iconic movie, and you would want the principal actors to be on the front like it should be.
One of the other things I thought was I had a laugh at this question, and it's something I never really noticed until watching the movie last night. I got a seat very close up because I wanted to see the cast and crew screening close. I wanted to be closer to that, so I knew it was going to be a problem when I saw the actual movie. Do you remember the scene where Julie's woken up by Randy? He's sleeping on her lawn.
I don't.
Okay. So he is sleeping on her lawn in an effort to get her back. He tries all these great declarations of love in an effort to get her back. And one of the scenes is he's asleep on her lawn,
Hmm.
and she's asleep, and she has got the creepiest doll next to her. It's a clown doll, and it's so creepy. It looks like one of those, if you would started the movie with that, you would have thought the doll was going to come to life and kill everybody. Like it was just a creepy doll. And I forgot which actor it was. It might have been, um, oh God, it might have been. I'm drawing a blank on which actor it was, but I guess he actually that was his house. In addition to
Wow.
Yeah, in addition to being in the movie, they actually filmed Julie's house was his family's house. And he said that that doll was his sister's, and I think she called it Mr. Clowney. And he goes, "Oh my God, I hope somebody's recording this. And thank you for asking a question. This is going to make my sister's entire year to hear about her creepy doll being brought up at the Q&A at the 40th anniversary." And he goes, "I just want to call her now. I'm so tempted." Apparently, yeah. So he said it was really strange for him. In addition to having all the great memories of filming and being a part of the movie, that was the house that he grew up in was Julie's house. So seeing all the furniture and stuff like that, and how the appearance of the home and everything, and Mr. Clowney. So that is and it was funny because they asked, Deborah Foreman goes, "I never really thought it was creepy." It's like, oh God, that thing is really creepy. And so I don't know if it was, they never said if it was her choice just to have it next to her on the bed, when she was asleep or what, or if she just found it in there and grabbed it. Who knows? But so Mr. Clowney made an appearance, and I think Mr. Clowney needs a spin-off where he goes around and kills everybody.
That would be amazing. One thing that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
One thing that I'd completely forgotten about, and I'm curious as to whether this gentleman was at the at your yesterday's event, if he's even still around. Richard Sanders, a bearded Les Nessman, was actually the driver's ed teacher where, Julie and her friends are in the car and, she's like paying no attention to what she's doing and squealing tires and stuff. And he eventually gets so scared that he gets out of the car and just lets them drive off on their own. Had completely forgotten that he was in that movie.
Yeah, he has a very brief scene in it, but I don't know if he's still around, if he's still with us anymore. I was shocked Colleen Camp, who, like I said, was Julie's mom, was there at the event. I think it's Frederick Forrest who played the father. He wanted to be there and actually sent an email to be read aloud, but they didn't even mention him, so I don't know if he's still with us or not. But it would have definitely, if he is, would have been really cool to see Les Nessman. But I have to imagine he's up there if he's still with us.
Yeah, yeah.
But um, one of the things about this movie is, of course, there was no sequel. There was a remake. And I know you've seen the remake because I watched it with you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you thought of the remake.
Well, I'm not big on musicals. I can watch them live. I have a hard time sitting down and watching them on the screen. I don't know why, but so that was a big turnoff for me. And yeah, I saw clips of that as I was doing my research this morning, and it didn't bring back the best of memories. So it was cute. It was cool that that they sort of redid it, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad movie. I'd certainly tell people if give it a chance. They did use a lot of '80s music to just kind of do a '80s musical. Um, it's kind of one of those throwaways. Like you're not going to remember the movie like 10 minutes after you watched it, but it's not the worst way to kill time listening to a bunch of people sing '80s songs. It just definitely doesn't hold a candle to the original. So
Yeah,
going back
agreed.
to the original, do you have a particular favorite scene of the movie?
I don't have one, but there are a few of them that I actually sort of captured this morning that I thought were either amusing or very touching. The breakup scene where Julie's breaking up with Tommy in the mall next to the escalator, and the way that she breaks up with them, and this is ad verbatim, I'm totally not in love with you, Tommy. It's so boring. And then he's like all bummed, and then he looks at his friends and he's all like, who else is there? There's no other Val dude that can touch me. She just must be really freaking out. Amazing, just amazing. And again, it gets all of the Valley speak in there, and I thought it was really funny. It wasn't meant to be funny, but looking back at it now, it's hilarious.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's kind of sad because a lot of those locations don't exist anymore. Like in the movie, like the scene that you're talking about, I think everyone thinks it was filmed at the Galleria, and it wasn't. It was actually, I think it's the Del Amo Fashion Mall, which still exists, and that's closer to Orange County. Um, and I've actually been there. Looks nothing like what it did in the movie, unfortunately. God damn it, bring Chess King back, people. Um, that's what I want. Is I want an '80s mall. Somebody bring back an '80s mall and just fill it with those kinds of stores. I probably would make no money, go bankrupt within 6 months, but I'd still, somebody that has money to burn, please do that. Um, it's really tough for me. I think two that come to mind. I love the montage, right? When they start dating and they go to Dupar's, which was in Studio City for a very long time. I actually got to eat there. Um, they're going to all these places, you see them. at the movies, and that montage was "I Melt with You" in the background was just an amazing scene. And then for me, I think my favorite, other than that, my favorite scenes were when Randy's trying to get her back. Like when he's staying there at the movies and he's got the 3D glasses, the little, paper 3D glasses, and he's acting as a ticket taker. He's like, "Oh, cool! Is this movie in 3D?" "No, but your face is," and it's just, and he's taking the tickets, and then they go to the restaurant, which is a car hop restaurant, and Randy comes out disguised as the waiter, and giving them their food. He kind of lifts his glasses up so Julie knows who he is, and he's like, "Oh, you forgot," or Tommy goes, "You forgot my fries and a milkshake or a Coke." He goes, "Oh, I guess I did," and he spits his gum on him and everything. I don't know why that just always cracked me up, but so I personally thought you were going to mention the E.G. Daily topless scene, Lewis. So I thought you were going to go with that.
No, I wasn't going to talk about that one.
Would you like to now that I brought it up?
I still probably would not like to talk about that one. But now that you mention her, I didn't realize that she was in Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure, and she
Yeah,
also does a lot of voiceovers, like Tommy Pickles and Rugrats, and Buttercup and the Powder Puff Girls.
yeah, she does a lot. She's got a really unique voice. It was funny because they asked the characters, or they asked the cast members, like the gals, if it was really difficult to pick up the Valley speak. And Deborah Foreman mentioned that she kind of got all her Valley speak from the record Valley Girl. That's what she picked up. And E.G. Daily was saying something along the lines of she didn't feel like she got it right. So she made this own backstory for herself that she really was from Encino trying to do Valley speak. And I was like, huh, all right, interesting take on it. But it was funny because they were talking about the accents and everything else, or the Valley speak, and they're talking about how much joy they had filming the movie. And she was talking about how it just seemed like a pajama party, like the scenes where the girls were together all the time. She goes when they were trying on the lingerie and stuff, and she goes and doing that weird dance, and she starts shaking her head like she did in the movie, and it was like, wow, that was really cool. Just that brief moment of that. But it was funny because she was like, yeah, watching the movie, she goes, you hear me talking in the beginning and it's like, what the hell am I even saying? And they're like, and everyone's like, I don't know what you were saying either. But yeah, they actually did talk about the nudity because I don't think anyone expected this movie to be as good as it was. I think they were just trying to get a quick exploitation on the Valley Girl phenomenon. And Martha Coolidge had it in her contract that she had to show a certain amount of boobs in the movie. And of course, E.G. Daily pointed out, "Yep, you see mine." And there was another girl there who you barely see her, and she was there at the premiere or at the anniversary screening yesterday. She's the gal that kind of gets topless for like just a brief second in the bathroom at the party. So she raised her hand, but Martha Coolidge was like, "Yeah, they said I had to show a certain amount of boobs. They never said for how long." So I thought that was kind of interesting. So she was contractually obligated to do that.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I thought so. But yeah, that was also one of my favorite scenes. You won't own it, but I'll own that stuff. But it was funny because there was a gal there that was, during the Q&A, and she said, the effect that it had on her as a teenager watching this movie was, even though it was, really there for for an exploitative reason, um, that it actually really benefited her. And she says a lot of my friends looked at that and said, "Hey, wait a second, these guys, may not care about us, so let's not, She goes, it kept my bra on a lot longer than it would have otherwise. I thought that was
Huh,
kind of an interesting take on it, seeing it as a teenage girl in the in that context.
very interesting. Yeah, definitely not a way that I would think that somebody would take it. So
Yeah,
interesting.
but you weren't a teenage girl.
I wasn't. No, no, I don't
The,
think
the
I was
last
anyway.
the last thing I'll talk about is the prom, the end scene. I believe that's filmed at at least the outside was Harvard Westlake. I don't know where the inside was filmed for the prom, but they brought up that teacher. The teacher, remember that speech? You probably don't. But she does that thing introducing a king and queen of the prom, and I always laughed at it because she's like, "I wanted to be prom queen, but I wasn't." But what
I
makes a
do
prom
remember
king
that.
queen? Is it the most popular kids? I don't think so. Is it the head cheerleader and the, captain of the football team? I think not. And so that actress was there. She had one take to do that.
Wow.
You have to remember back in those days, everything was on film. This was a very small budget film. And Martha Coolidge says, "Hey, you're gonna have to do this in one take," and didn't really have a script for her. So she kind of created her own script to introduce them. And what I had to laugh is she says, what you don't realize is there's a kid, they had all these extras there to play prom extras, and there's this kid going, flipping her off the whole time that she's actually talking. She goes, so that was kind of affecting my performance and knowing I have to do this in one take. And then some of the, I don't know if it was the producers or what, but they were saying, yeah, that scene, like a lot of those kids stole their wardrobes and could just wreaked havoc. Like, they had to clean up the bathrooms because they had stuffed all the stuff down there and running, overflowed the toilets. And they said it was just a nightmare, stole all their wardrobes. And yeah, so that was as rowdy as you would have expected it to be. And then Josie Cotton said it was freezing in there. She says she doesn't know what they were doing. She's like, I'm in a mini skirt and I'm freezing this whole time. So, well, I thought a little bit interesting, a little bit of background on the filming of Valley Girl.
Yeah, very cool. And I had forgotten about the speech, and and that is pretty awesome how she just sort of made it her own. I wonder if the folks that were actually directing and producing the movie had any idea that she was going to write something like that, where it's a lot sort of like, hey, I was not the high school king or queen. Well, king or queen. I guess that would still be relevant in today's age. And then she made it personal. I wonder if they had any idea that she was going to do that. That's really awesome.
It doesn't sound like they did, and like I said, she had one take at it, so I don't think they could have done much anyway. I think you're kind of stuck with it, but I thought it was just a fantastic scene, and the fact that she kind of made it personal to her own experience, I thought was pretty neat, and just another thing that's just crazy to think about. How this movie wasn't supposed to do anything like $1 million budget. I mean, yeah, it's even today $1 million is a pretty good amount of money. But when you hear what people spend to make movies these days, I mean, that just is was nothing. And I think they were just trying to capture some exploitative thing, maybe make a couple million on their movie, and it went above and beyond. And just we're talking about it 40 years later, which is very scary to me.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
All right, brother. Well, I think I'm about done with Valley Girl. You want to add anything before we call this?
I do, but I think we'll just wrap it up at this point. I think we've talked a lot about this and we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm really happy that you had such a great time at the movie and the sort of Q&A session. I know that you weren't feeling super well, and I'm glad you made it out there and that you had a good time.
And then the crazy thing about it is I had bought tickets to the New Beverly, Quentin Tarantino's theater. They're showing a double feature tonight of Valley Girl and Modern Girls. I've never seen Modern Girls. That came out in the 80s. And then that's a non-refundable ticket. And then I found out about this Q&A afterwards. So yes, I'm gonna go see Valley Girl again tonight. I don't know if any of the cast shows up. Sometimes they do at the New Bev, but you know, I've seen it two nights in a row, and hopefully I enjoy Modern Girls. I'll let you know next week.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, as always, we appreciate you watching this. Please give us a like, give us a subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Put your favorite Valley Girl moments in the comments. We'd love to hear them. And Lewis, take us out, brother.
Peace out, everyone.
Thank you, guys.